I was just making a video and paused it and unpaused it, but that erased it. So darn it. But all right, we're gonna do round two. So okay, you have been believing for something. You have been longing for a blessing. You are holding out on faith because there's something that you want, and you're convicted on an emotional level, on a soul level, on an intuitive level, on a heartfelt level, and you know that what it is that you long for is it's yours. And you don't necessarily have external proof that this thing exists, but you have the faith, and you get glimmers, you get winks from God, you get nods, you get instruction, you get direction, you get, your faith kind of moves in waves. And you might be at a place, or you might get to a place eventually, where in the process of receiving the blessing that you long for, somebody wants to say hello, there's gonna come a point where you learn to find, this is really tricky to put into words, you learn to find peace in the not knowing. You learn to actually find pleasure and a sense of feeling anchored in your faith in the middle of not knowing. I got cat hairs all up in my face. Sorry about that. Something that I've noticed in my life, and I actually watched a video on YouTube of someone talking about this kind of same concept, and I'm like, I feel like I need to talk about this as well, because it feels important. I'm going through this process. Oh my goodness, my honey wants to drink out of the shower, but we're not gonna do that. I'm deeply sorry. You can walk in there, that's fine, but I'm not gonna turn it on. I'm sorry, honey. Please don't talk to me, I'm making a video. Anyway, I'm at this place in my life where I have released a tremendous amount of things that are not in alignment with where I'm going and who I am and what I want and who I'm becoming. Some people will be able to relate to this or understand, especially people that are drawn to my videos, and if you're drawn to this one specifically, you get that in order to walk into your new life, the new version of you, you need to release what doesn't serve you, as the cliche saying goes. But it's true, this kind of happens across the board, where when people are evolving or being pushed forward into their future and into the versions of themselves that are more aligned with their integrity, with their values, with God, with whatever, relationships fall away. And sometimes, you might get a revelation that where you live is not really the place for you anymore, or that you need to quit your job or go find a new one, or change some things, and in life, because we're human and we live in these relative 3D worlds, we find meaning in our immediate environment, and a lot of the time we find meaning in the circumstances around us that shaped us as we grew up, and the relationships and conditions and places and spaces that hold us and form us and reflect whatever they reflect back to us. We find ourselves, pieces of ourselves in those things. However, sometimes those things can't reflect the full glory of God. They can't reflect the fullness of who you are and who you're meant to be. It doesn't necessarily automatically have to mean that those people or places or things are bad things. just means that they're not aligned. Sometimes they are bad, but sometimes it's just that they don't fit. They don't mirror what it is that you are made of. They don't mirror who it is that you're becoming. And I feel like that is an example of what happens when, you know, you're in a place in your life where you're feeling constant longing. You know, the longing could be a symptom of the fact that your life doesn't reflect who you are. It doesn't reflect what's deeper inside of you. And, you know, raise your hand if you've also, you know, walked through seasons in your life where, you know, God was your only friend. It's just you and God. I've gone through a couple periods in my life where I refer to them as, you know, it was just me and God. I lost all my friends. I lost my connections. I've been through a lot of loss, a lot of change, all for the purpose of evolution and, you know, becoming more of myself and stepping more fully into peace, and kind of coincides with the work, you know, what people refer to as the work in neo-psych pop psych worlds, I guess. I don't know how to put that into words. But anyway, when we are called to a thing, to a divine appointment, when we are called to a mission, when our soul longs for a lifestyle, a vision, a business endeavor, a relationship, whatever it is for you that you long for, when the soul longs for that, things in your life will, you know, unless you're ahead of the game and you're listening and discerning and taking calculated steps, things will shake up and they'll fall apart if they don't align. At least that's just what I've observed in my own life. And when that happens, what happens is a sense of existential crumbling and faith shaking, and we question our identity. And sometimes we lose ourselves, and sometimes we find ourselves, and we are able to deepen our connection with God. And I know in my life, every time I've gone through those kind of tower moments where everything collapses and everything familiar, everything comfortable just kind of changes or dies or crumbles or disappears, I have, you know, realized my identity is actually rooted in God. It's rooted in what doesn't change. And even if you look at different Eastern, you know, religions or traditions, they're parallel concepts, you know, in their understanding of our center. I know in Buddhism, I don't know if it's Tibetan Buddhism exclusively, but Buddhism in general, what I learned is that one of the core pillars of it is, you know, refuge. Who are you taking refuge in? What are you taking refuge in? Where is your refuge? You know, the beliefs are not, I don't know, whatever. I'm seeing the patterns in these things. And then also, you know, in Aveda Vedanta and the specific breathwork Kriya yogas that I learned, you know, there's just teachings up the wazoo about, you know, the breath is the one thing that you control. It's your center, you know, and it can be a vehicle to bring you back to center. And just a little quick tangent, I don't do breath work anymore. I did do it, but I found that the relationship that I had with it just wasn't sustainable. And I find that a lot of people think that, you know, if you're having an issue in your life or you're frustrated or something, all you need to do is breathe, as if breathing to calm you down is the only thing that's acceptable to the people who are actually too uncomfortable to deal with your raw emotions. That's a whole separate thing. But anyway, tangent. But this is all just to kind of talk about how I'm like getting lost in the trees out here. I got a canyon out my window and I'm like, my mind is wandering a little bit. But Yeah. Hold on. Okay, wait, gotta recollect myself. So basically, what I was trying to say is that God is at the center of everything. And the more that, I've gone through these shakeups in my life, the more that I am stripped of what's comfortable to me, the more that I'm cast into the unknown or jump into the unknown. I've done that plenty of times. The more I, get stripped away of my personality characteristics and my tendencies, and it's like all of a sudden I'm in a new environment and I don't need to use the same behaviors or psychological predispositions, like personality is, if you look at it from a psychological perspective, it's just a culmination of behaviors or adaptation, things that give us this appearance that helps us survive and adapt. And I don't know, I don't mean to flatten personality at all or psychoanalyze or reduce the magic of personal identity and expression into just some psychological thing, but all this is to just say, to come back full circle to really the point of this video, which is, it's really exciting. When you are having faith in that new thing and that blessing to become fulfilled in your life, there's gonna have to come a point where you need to release your old identity. And for me, what I found that means is finding comfort, pleasure, security, and my center in the middle of change and uncertainty and discomfort. And it's almost like, for example, this is a very personal example. I was emotionally abused, systemically abused. I have been through so much, and I'm not the only one. Hi, my sweet girl. And so my nervous system was trained to believe that relationships looked always unsafe, that I would never get my needs met, that I would always be giving more than I would be receiving, that nobody would check in on me first. I would always be the first one to reach out. And while that was a pattern that repeated itself for a long, long, long time, when I made the decision to stop accepting that and to respect my identity as a child of God, God loves me and I am worth more than what my limited experience showed me initially. When I decided that, what that looked like on a practical level was leaving my previous home environment. Trusting that I will have my needs, my physical needs taken care of. Money, food, shelter, things like this. It looked like expressing my true emotions to people that I cared about. When I, allowing myself to be visible, to be seen, because we can't really be known if we're not seen. And I think it's, our responsibility to be authentic, but also that doesn't mean, expose yourself everywhere you go. Just again, discernment is a huge key. So yeah, it looked like me being more discerning and more connected to my authentic expression in different circumstances, and trusting what was true for me despite external validation, despite anyone needing to affirm it. There were times in my life where I've had to make decisions or process certain things where I didn't have a human being to validate me and to acknowledge, what was right, what was wrong. There were plenty of moments in my life where I had to just really be boiled down to my own essence, and confront myself, to confront everything that I was made of, everything that was driving my emotions, my decisions. And I had to get honest about that, because frankly, it's exhausting to pretend, to hide, to lie. And it becomes real obvious real quick when you don't have people outside of you reflecting back a specific reality to you. It becomes really obvious what is motivating you, because it's just you and you. It's just you and yourself. And that would be what some people would call a season of isolation, you know, a season of being hidden. So yeah, you know, part of stoking the flames of your faith, what I'm learning, I feel like I'm integrating this now, and I've learned this, and I'm excited about it. I feel good about it. But part of what that looks like is actually learning to find pleasure in the middle of a life where I don't have any close friends. I don't have a stable home. I don't have family. I don't have, you know, people that I can call at 3 a.m. for certain things. There are parts of myself that I'm only sharing with God, you know, that makes sense. And the longing that has filled me with has been so freaking intense that I have, you know, I've cried myself to sleep, sometimes like hours a day. I'm just like constantly just welling up. And that's part of the process. It is not something to be pathologized or shamed. And I know not everyone gets this. So you know what, if you get it, that's great. But if you don't, then and you want to, then ask some questions, post some questions in the comments, but don't bring your projections into my space. Cause I don't want that. But yeah, faith sometimes just looks like being excited about the fact that you act, like literally surrendering to the reality that you literally have no idea what's coming. Like, you know in your heart what's coming, like you can feel it because you desire it, you want it, but you literally have no idea what it looks like, and your nervous system doesn't really fully know how to even receive it or recognize it. Because again, going back to my personal example, I went through pretty much almost every close relationship I've been, in has ended with pain or betrayal or whatever. And I've just been through so much of that. That was my primary attachment model. So I understand that my nervous system might not fully know what to expect or what to look for when it comes to receiving, you know, God-ordained relationships, whether it's a spouse or a friend. And so with that, I pray, I follow my intuition, I follow my guidance. I go to therapy, you know, I'm aware of myself, of my patterns, I have discernment, I have accountability, I'm good, I'm solid. Even with my, you know, shakiness. That's just human. We tremble, we shake, we falter, we fall, and we get back up. But the thing that I'm trying to say, well, I guess there's not one thing I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say a lot of things. But yeah, it's looked like building a level of security. This is so hard to put into words. I think the core of this message is that, yeah, when you're having faith for something that you know you've never experienced, like I've never experienced a God-ordained spouse, marriage, relationship. That's something that I long for, and I know that a lot of us long for. And I know I see some examples of it that I admire, and I also see some examples of relationships that make me feel like a cinch in my gut, like, oh no, I don't want this. And it brings up this fear, and that fear is because I don't know. You know, I've never known in the physical what that kind of relationship feels like because I've never had one, but that's what I want. And that's what I will not settle for anything other than, you know what I mean? And so in that process, I hope that this encourages you because, you know, you're not alone. You're not alone in letting go of what doesn't align with your vision. You're not alone in feeling the depths and the intensity of your longing and sometimes questioning, you know, is this valid? Is this ever going to be fulfilled? Yes. Yes, it will. Yes, absolutely yes. And you're not going to know how because it's new. And that's just the thing. You got to learn to walk in faith. Do your due diligence. Let go of the crap that doesn't fit. Stay in alignment. Stay close to God. That's what they mean when they say stay in prayer. You know, stay listening, stay tuned in, stay discerning. So that as you move through life, as you follow your intuitive guidance, as you sniff your way, as you take faithful steps, action steps, embodied, lived steps towards what you long for, even if you have no idea, is this going to give me results? Is this going to give me results? This seems like the closest way. This seems like the best way. So I think I'll stick with it because it feels like if I continue to do this, I'm going to inevitably get here because this is what I can do that's in my power right now. This feels as close as I can get right now to that thing that I want. So I'm going to follow that because that feels like peace. That feels like my promise. That feels good. That feels like it brings me security, ease, satiation. I don't know how to say that word. Satiation, satiety, I don't know. Satiety, what is that word? Satiety, satiation. Anyway, yeah, God, that's God. And so I hope that this encourages you to get yourself a freaking ice cream. You know what I mean? Like, and don't stress about what you're doing or not doing. There's so much in the neo-spiritual woo-woo, you know, new age world that I've been through a lot of this and it honestly effed me up. And I had to heal a lot from it. And it makes me angry that this is happening. But a lot of people like to kind of abuse the energy of, what is it? What am I trying to say? It's like God works in perfect timing, and as humans, we have no control of what happens. And so, I mean, there is some truth to doing what you can to manifest your reality. But this is a kind of a separate conversation, the conversation about manifesting versus co-creating with God. And, you know, the more that I've actually lived life, none of this is coming from dogma. This is coming from lived experience. What I think is real, what I know is real, is co-creating with God, because we can only do so much, you know? So what I'm saying is, don't stress yourself out. Just because you don't have your soulmate standing right in front of you doesn't mean you're doing something wrong necessarily. Especially if you've done all you can do. But a lot of the new age culture narrative tries to kind of push this idea on people who don't have their dream manifestations yet, that you have a block, something's blocking you. But it's like, actually, nothing is blocking me. I have a very intimate relationship with God, and I'm in check. I check myself, and my, you know, the flow of my blessings is nobody else's business. So don't let somebody try to gaslight you, especially if you know in your soul that you're not doing anything wrong. you're just walking your path, and it doesn't have to look like everybody else's. You know, society, social media always portrays these ideas and expectations that are impossible for everyone to meet. Well, you need to have your person by a certain age. You need to get married and have kids and make this amount of money by 35 years old or whatever. That's not fucking true. It's just, that's fear. That is literally fear speaking. But when you trust God, you learn to kind of just cancel out the noise of the outside world and have such a clear relationship with God, with your Lord and Savior, with your King, with your Master, with your Creator, the King of the universe. I'm saying it. I'm full on God worshiping. I feel like I've danced around it enough, but like, I worship God. I love God. I really do. I believe in God, in one God, the creator of the universe. And I'm Jewish, and I watch a lot of Christian prophetic biblical verse discussion kind of videos, and I get a lot of kind of language and parallels and insight from those to my own experiences. And I'm just kind of, I'm ready to embrace the fact that I'm a freaking God worshiper. He is my king of my universe, you know? That's really how I feel, because it's my experience. It's not coming from dogma. It feels a little silly to say, but it's like, I just need to claim that for myself, you know? Claim that label, that communication. Anyway, you know, so yeah, I think just to wrap this up, let this be encouragement to sit back, relax, keep walking in faith. And if you're at a point where it's like, you know, your blessings are coming and you don't know how or where or whatever, and you're in this unknown space, but it's another layer of unknown where you're actually excited for the thing, that's awesome, because it means that you're ready to receive it. It means that you're ready to get bits and pieces and put them together so that you can have a full picture of what the thing is going to be like. And it's like, God will put you in situations, if you trust God, where you will collect, so to speak, these experiences and these moments that literally prime your human nervous system, your flesh, to receive the blessing that was hand knit by God for you. So I'm excited for me and for you, because, you know, I'm like a baby in the sense that I have no idea what God has for me, but I know it's better than I can imagine, because nothing in my past is going to compare to who is coming and what is coming. It scares me a little bit, because there's a part of me that's like, oh, I don't want to F this up. I don't want to mess up or whatever. But you can't mess up what God has for you. You just got to stay humble, you know, stay receptive, stay open, stay in alignment. You're going to learn, you're going to grow, you're going to, you know, have little falters, little hiccups. There might be moments where, you know, past patterns and the devil and old habits try to kind of catch up to you, and you might feel yourself slipping back into familiar ways, but it's like, that's just residual energy, because the momentum of your past habits, I mean, God knows how much energy it took to crack those things, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? Because if you're still watching this, then you know how much energy it takes to reroute your life and to make better choices for yourself. You know, that kind of work is not for the faint of heart. It's not for the weak. It takes a lot of endurance, and it takes superhuman strength. So, you know, you might have little hiccups here and there, but it's like, this process that you're going through now, if you're going through one of these processes, is strengthening your spiritual, psycho-emotional muscles to actually receive what's meant for you and walk alongside it while it lasts and endures the duration of your entire life. Because people say this, and I believe it, and I feel it, and I am anticipating it energetically, that what God has is forever. What God delivers is unconditional and true, because it's anchored. and all the distractions that come up around it, they can be managed. They can be healed. They can be worked around. They can be transmuted because God is at the center. And if you're not living that, then my words will probably sound empty to you. They will probably make you feel frustrated because they are coming from a place of experience. And there's no way to explain this to someone who hasn't lived it yet. I can't do that. But this video and my videos in general are for the people who have walked the same ways or way that I have. And I'm one of many. So I hope that putting this out here will bring you comfort, encouragement, guidance. And that is it. And I'll talk to you next time.